So you've had a tremendous amount of information regarding the statutes, but believe me, you've just heard the first lecture. We're just getting started. However, before getting into more lectures from the apostles and testimony, you're probably having a question looming up in your mind. What about the ancient feasts of Israel? Of course, everybody enjoys a feast. Nothing wrong with having feasts. My favorite for years was Thanksgiving. And I can still see all the relatives coming in, and having a great time and chattering and playing their board games in the living room and putting together picture puzzles. And I can see the fellows out in the backyard playing horseshoes. It's a great time. And finally, the call to dinner. It's just a wonderful holiday, isn't it? And you come to dinner and you see the best china that's in the house. And you see the best silverware that the wife has. And you see the most wonderful groceries you've ever seen in your life on the table with all the gravies and sauces and all these other wonderful things. And then the Thanksgiving prayer. And everybody's thankful for so much. It's beautiful. You begin to wonder if the prayer is ever going to be over, because the one praying keeps thinking of all the things to be thankful for. And we certainly have a lot of them. We're thankful for it all. Finally, it's time to eat. Wow, what a time. Enough food for 3 families. Yes, feasts are wonderful, but aren't we dead set against the statute feasts given to Israel? The truth is, dear friends, there are 4 types of statutes that I've been able to discover. Statutes on morality give us so much strength and so much help. A lot of us probably wished we'd known those when we were younger. Praise God, we have youth that we might be able to teach. Then there are statutes regarding healthful living. I wonder if we might all not live to be 100 years old if we'd already always known them. We know the statutes about clean and unclean meats. A lot of people know that, but that's only the touching of the surface. There are many other statutes about health. Oh, yes, there are. Then there are statutes about tithes and offerings. Well, they're a little bit different than you may have heard about tithes and offerings before, too. But they certainly are abundant, and they show God's abundance to those who share them. And then there are the statutes regarding His feasts. Wow. Well, we're not to get into much of that right now, but the objections to the feast generally come in 4 directions. And we'll just look at 3 of them on this film, because these 3 are kind of silly. In other words, I don't want you to get in trouble in an argument with someone and use an argument that's really shallow. So I want to share them with you, at least the 3. The 4th one is pretty strong. We'll get to that probably on our next tape. But the first argument against the statute feast is because they contained animal sacrifices. Oh, yes, they certainly did. The second argument is because they might have to take a few days off from work each year. The third argument, well, Ellen White didn't keep them. And the 4th argument, well, they're simply not mentioned much on this side of the cross. That 4th one is a little more serious. Once again, the first 3 really don't amount to much, so I'll share them with you to keep you out of trouble. The objection number 1, they contained animal sacrifices and oblations. Actually, this is the weakest of the arguments. In other words, if we put much stock in this argument, we'd have to throw out the Sabbath. And a lot of folk know that. We certainly don't want to do that. Let me show you what I mean. We'll look at a few scriptures of the Old Testament. The first one being Leviticus 23, 1 through 3. Quote, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say to them concerning the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts." Now notice the first one. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is a Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. So biblically speaking, the Sabbath is His number 1 feast. Now let's move to Numbers 28, verse 1 and 2. Quote, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel, and say to them, My offering and my bread for my sacrifice made by fire for a sweet savor unto me shall ye observe to offer unto me in their due season. Next, he explains the seasons, but the one we're interested in is in verse 9 and 10. So here we are, Numbers 28, 9 and 10. Quote, and on the Sabbath day 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deals of flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and a drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, beside the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. So I can see, and I believe you can too, why this would not be a very good argument to say we shouldn't keep the feast because they had animal sacrifices, because they had animal sacrifices on the Sabbath. And you say, well, it's a feast. Of course it's a feast. They're all his feasts, and they all had animal sacrifices. So really it's just a wash. So what do Seventh-day Adventists do about it? We honor Christ's fulfillment of the sacrificial system. The ordinances of sacrifice had been superimposed over the Sabbath for a time until they met their fulfillment at the cross. You see, the Sabbath was established before sin and will continue after sin. The sacrificial system was established after sin and was completed at the cross. You see, it would really be a slap in the face of Christ to have animal sacrifices today. It would be as though we didn't believe in Calvary. And then again, as Seventh-day Adventists, we've always taken careful thought of Daniel 9:27. In the midst of the week, the sacrifice and oblation shall cease. You remember that? Positively, he said nothing about eliminating the days on which these sacrifices were made.